Welcome back to the Lanterne Rouge Cycling Podcast with Benji Naesen here for Tour of Slovenia Stage 2 recap. We'll have some highlights in this video for you as well if you're watching on YouTube. Thanks to Lacole for supporting this show. This Stage 2 is 148 Ks with two longer climbs, 5K 7% in the middle of the stage, and the Svetina climb, 5.2K, 7.7%, then a descent, and then a punch to the finish, 2Ks at 7.2%. Benji and I, naively, probably with our World Tour hats on, was saying, it'll probably be a puncher finish and, most likely it'd be a group and then a sprint at the end for Pogačar and Ulissi. Well, Pogačar showed his cards in this stage today. But before we get to Pogačar's dominance, there was a breakaway that opened up today with one familiar name in it, Benji.
Yes, certainly. We had Dan Bigham in it. We also had some other riders in there. Konishev, Molly, Banashek. We had Arais Kuznetsov, the guy that got, I think, third in Gent-Wevelgem, the one Peter Sagan won in 2016, I think. Crazy ride by him at Katusha that day. But yes, indeed, the most notable name that people might know is Dan Bigham, because he's also, next to being a cyclist, sometimes commentator, co-commentator on, I think, GCN. And next to that, also works for Jumbo, if I recall correctly, as an aero guy. But those are the majority of the information I have on the guy. Nonetheless, the breakaway wasn't going to really play a big role here today. We had two teams in the peloton really showing control. Perhaps 2.5 teams, I'd say, because UAE was pacing a lot. We had Bahrain pacing a lot. But also UNOX showing towards the front a tiny bit before the intermediate sprint happened on today's stage. And it seemed like they were planning something for that, right?
Yeah, UNOX, they're always active. You got to respect those guys. They animate races, particularly in Belgium they have this year. Maybe it didn't pay off for them today. They had the break in check pretty early, everyone, and then they were like, okay, let's slow down. We don't want to catch them too early. But they did before that last intermediate sprint. Now, I don't know if Bahrain were going to get Bauhaus points or what was happening. He was definitely on the front. But Bahrain pacing after UNOX paced into the base of this climb, which is 5.2 Ks at 7.7%, it split the peloton. No one was really expecting it, or maybe just someone lost the wheel. It was narrow and a few twists into that Svetina climb. And we basically had a group with Bauhaus, Tratnik, Pogačar, and that was pretty much, and Vergaard Steker Langen, the Norwegian as well, I think. So he was in that group. And so they've pretty much, Bahrain created a perfect situation for Pogačar. Bauhaus promptly drops, of course. I mean, he's a sprinter. So we have a group of 3 on this climb at the base of the Svetina climb. Pogačar, Steker Langen pacing him, obviously, selflessly, and then Tratnik sitting on. And Tratnik's obviously looked outstanding in the Giro climbing and in Flesh, but today he didn't have as good legs, and maybe he's a bit tired, or understandably tired from that he's had a long period of racing, and he dropped earlier than I expected, maybe because the pace was very high on the Svetina, but he dropped off that pace. So we've got Pogačar going clear, Steker Langen's gone, but Pogačar didn't go full straight away on the Svetina, not straight away. We could see the camera cut back to Micah and Ulissi. Now, I thought, some gut feeling told me, just because this was a similar stage to the ones Ulissi's done well at in the past in Slovenia, I was like, maybe they go for Ulissi today, UAE. And that's what seemed to be happening. Micah was on the radio. Pogačar seemed to ease up a bit, and Micah was bringing back Ulissi to the Pogačar. So then, but they're bringing with them Matteo Sobrero, the Italian 24-year-old out of contract. I mean, if you want to sign a talented guy, a good TT, well, maybe that's a separate topic for the offseason, pencil his name down. They're bringing him with them. So they bring him back to Pogačar. We've got 3 UAE, Pogačar, Ulissi, Micah. And we're thinking, okay, business as usual, Sobrero as well on the back. Micah's going to pace, and then we'll set up Ulissi for the stage when we'll drop Sobrero later. But that's not what happened. Pogačar just decided to attack. And I remember when I did the preview video, this is because if you remember that Vlasov, Chavez, Pogačar, Ulissi situation, remember what happened there. Pogačar gave the go-ahead to Ulissi to attack at the end of that climb. Well, he's never won his Tour of Slovenia stage. He probably doesn't, if Ulissi goes up the road, he could gain a minute on GC or something. I think he wants to in GC here. So he was like, nah, I'm attacking today, drops all those guys. Those two then sit on Sobrero, who paces them at a good pace on the climb, and Pogačar goes clear, gets a 35-second gap very quickly. I think chasing behind Benji, it was James Shaw on another UAE rider. He was being paced by the UAE rider as well. Mohoric was Yeah, Polan's probably the right one. Mohoric was coming back as well, but he got dropped pretty early on the climb. It seemed like it's weird, Benji, like Bahrain pacing into the base and then Mohoric being completely out of position. It's kind of surprising to me. I mean, what could Bahrain's plan have been today? And if you were Bahrain, would you have chosen this climb as the one to try and attack Pogačar at the base?
I think that it's weird that they went all out just before the climb, and I think it perhaps is a bit of a situation where they're trying to put pressure on UAE before the climb happens, and to make sure that the attacks that UAE does on the climb are less effective than the ones they had initially planned to do towards Bahrain. But I think the idea should not be to have Mohoric attack on the climb. I think the idea should be to have him attack in the descents. I think this Fatina descent is also one he descended on and he attacked on a few years ago. I do expect that an attack from this team is more likely to come with Mohoric on the descent than on the uphill section, and that Trotnik perhaps was the rider they were going to try and keep up there as well on the climbing section. But again, his legs were not there on the day, at least not the ones we've been seeing in previous weeks. But yeah, I don't think we can tell an entire story about it. There was one rider much better than all the others in this race when it comes to the climbing, and whatever Bahrain would have done today would not have been enough to get Pogačar off that top step. So does it really matter?
I think it does. I think it does matter because what Benji just mentioned, it came to life in reality in that when Pogačar goes over the top of the climb clear, he's got like a minute 12 gap. That's such a big gap that even when he took the descent pretty cautiously, it wasn't as wet, that descent. Maybe he knows it as well. But behind, Sobrero drops the two UAE guys easily, Ulissi and Micah. And then Mohoric, who was way back, catches them on the descent and then goes past, and they catch up to Sobrero in this sort of 7K valley before the final climb. And then Sobrero and Mohoric start working in the valley, trying to put pressure on the UAE guys. So it seemed like the best point in the race, if they did want to put pressure on UAE, who do have the strongest team by far here, particularly on the climbs, was on the descent, was on the valley. And if they wanted to make a difference with Mohoric, it would have been, let's hope this climb is slow.
True.
Let's hope the climb's slow. And then if Pogačar attacks over the top, gets 15, 20 seconds, maybe Mohoric can even catch that back up at the end. But anyway, Pogačar went clear, solo, did the climb on his own, the last 2K, 7% climb in front of all the home fans, honouring the race, and he's looking in good shape for the Tour, winning this stage easily, a minute and 22 seconds ahead of the chasers, who were basically then Micah. He had such a big gap that Micah led out Ulissi on the last climb, but he actually got beaten by Mohoric in the uphill sprint for Bahrain Victorious. So not a UAE 1-2. So it's Pogačar, Mohoric second, Ulissi third on the same time with Sobrero. Fantastic effort from him. Then Kangat, Shaw, Micah, Carboni, who we saw in the Giro, Jonathan Lastra, and then Polance makes up the top 10. But yeah, anything else to say apart from just Pogačar pure dominance in this stage, Benji?
Yeah, not really. I think that was a fun stage to watch. I think that we were kind of expecting. I think we mentioned yesterday that we thought about a strategy for UAE where they could attack with Pogačar on the climb and keep Ulissi for the final sprint if it all comes together. It didn't come together anymore, so Pogačar takes it. And I think we're going to see a repeat of that on stage. Is it 4? The climbing one? I think 4. It is. I think there's no one in this peloton that can beat Pogačar on an uphill finish. So quite certain that he's going to be the winner there unless something odd happens. But that's about it for this stage. I think we need to take a look at the next one.
Yeah, it's always great to see the Tour de France champ just absolutely destroy a race, even if the competition isn't as good. Stage 3, 167 Ks from Brzice to Krsko. And this is a sort of who's going to get over that final climb. 1K is 6.85%. Comes with 13 Ks from the finish. It comes after the Sremic climb, 4.3 Ks at 5.6%. I think Bike Exchange got a ride full for Rob Stannard here. He's who I think could take his first pro win. I think Bauhaus, they got to make him vulnerable on those two climbs and ride absolutely max there. Other quick finishes are Fellini and Fellini, and I don't know if who's your man Aberasturi. He can get over small hills, can't he, Benji?
Yeah, indeed. You were going to say Aramburu, right? But it's the wrong one.
Well, there's Aaron Brew here, but not the right one.
Yeah, it's joking, which is ready for some puns, to be honest. But yeah, Albert Asturi is my pick for this stage. I agree that hill could cause trouble for a Bauhaus. I do still think that he's likely going to get over it. Wouldn't surprise me. But I am looking forward to a stage win by Albert Asturi. He was close on the first day, really close. And I think he's not that far away from Bauhaus when it comes to the sprinting ability. So with the ability of getting over climbs, that is better than Bauhaus, in my opinion, at least from what we've seen in the Vueltas before, then I truly believe that he could be the victor of this third stage in, well, not even going to pronounce it.
I'll be interested to see how Anielkowski goes, whether he gets over the climbs okay, as well as Rory Townsend. He missed out on the first stage for Canyon. DHB Sun God, I think Townsend's supposed to be quite quick. I'll be interested to see how he goes, as well as, yeah, I think it's a really good opportunity for Rob Stannard. They got the team: Edmondson, Kanga, Callum Scotts, and Andres Ice Bewley. That's a team that should be able to put some pressure on Bauhaus on these low, sort of shallow climbs, as well as the man in the myth, the legend Restrepo, who he's either in the race and or you don't even know he's there. But yeah, that was the Tour of Slovenia Stage 2 recap. GC pretty much looks over already, but we always knew that was likely to be the case because Pogačar is just a step above everyone here, and yeah, he's looking good for the Tour de France defense in a couple of weeks. But until the Stage 3 recap, ciao.